And just like that, we're back.
Good morning. Welcome back to another Nudelberg Daily Huddle, ready to kick the week off with you guys. Great to see you, Lori. Great to see you, Shay. How's everybody doing?
Hey, a short week for us, man. Friday will be a day of rest. We will make it a 4-day weekend. So no huddle on Friday, no huddle on Monday. I know, Mark, you're planning on jetting out of town.
We're going to be in the Bahamas for the Memorial Day weekend. This guy's leaving the country for the first time, taking his trip. That's how he looks when he sees his mother. Nobody else. He doesn't get that happy for anybody else.
Lori, any great plans?
Marco, we'll probably head out Thursday after work. I need a little rest.
We decided we're staying around. All right, you gotta throw it out. What is going on in this sports town? It's unbelievable.
The Heat, the Panthers, the whole thing is wild.
I mean, watching the Panther game the other night, the confidence. We talk about this all the time. The confidence that both of these teams are displaying is just really, really wonderful. I mean, it is so much fun to watch. So we had golf, we have hockey, we have basketball. It's a wonderful time.
Yeah, it was a big weekend for the Knowles. Brooks Koepka gets the win of the PGA Championship. So that was fun to watch, and it was a great tournament. It was a lot of grinding it out, a lot of up and down. I think the story of the weekend, though, is Michael Block, who was the club pro that got into the tournament and hit a hole-in-one on the 16th hole, which was wild. And just a great story. Watching him after his appreciation, seeing all the things that have come from it, and his emotion, his wife's emotion, really, really fun, feel-good story in the weekend.
There's just good stuff, good feel good. When you think about Brooks, the last time he won was 2019. And I was watching it with Helen, and the commentator said something about the gremlins got in his head, and it just shows you what a mind thing. The guy was fantastic, and then all of a sudden, his mind is playing games with him. He can't win, can't get anything right. You start questioning everything you do. So something got into the Celtics' head, man. Speaking of gremlins, man.
Yeah. It's another great example of just like showing up mentally prepared and being willing to compete. I mean, regardless of how prepared they were to play last night, I don't know that you beat the Heat when they shoot that way and they play that way. Like, kudos to the Heat because they did what they were supposed to do. But the Celtics looked like they had folded already. Like, it looked like they were not there and ready to compete, which is a mental thing. They're all professional athletes. They're all plenty talented, plenty capable. They've proven they could win throughout the season. So it all comes down to the mental preparation about how you do this.
Speaking of preparation, before we get to preparation, just show some pictures. Show Lori at the game. Fantastic.
Lori, look like you had a fun weekend.
Look at Lori's weekend. Oh,
It was a lot. It's a lot lately. Yeah, this season is crazy, but it was all good.
Shay, show my weekend. Great stuff. That was celebrating Mark, which we'll talk about shortly, at Abe and Louie's after his TED Talk in Boca. And then Saturday night, we celebrated Courtney's birthday, and you see all the ladies wearing their sunglasses at night, which is so much fun. And then what we're going to talk about a lot today is how you prepare to be a champion. And Mark, man, unbelievable. Shay, show me some pictures of, look at him, just absolute confidence, absolute preparation, absolute focus. I can't wait to get into it. It's great stuff. Shay, wake this thing up, and then let's get right to it. So let me lay out the format. Second half of the show, we'll talk specifically about the TED Talk, about what you spoke about, which was owning failure, which I thought was amazing. But, comes down to, and you said this, it's process, it's routine. Lori, you know this. You can't just get up to the plate and hit the ball. You got to have some kind of rhythm. Speaking of that, I thought it was a great way to kick off the morning with Derek Jeter.
It's all discipline. You know what I mean? You have to have a routine. I had a routine. I had a ritual. I think I've told you this before. My biggest fear in life is being unprepared. I think the way you are prepared is to a ritual. I did it every single day for parts of 20 years. I knew what worked for me and I was going to stick to it. Good times, bad times, success or failure, I was sticking with my routine.
It's huge.
So, it's so basic. It's so simple, yet, you ask people to tell you their routine and they, he said every day for 20 years. That meant Saturday and Sunday, which the last time I checked have day in it. But I put out a poll, and this was fascinating. We'll do this almost every Monday now because on Friday I'll poll. This one got a lot of traction. I wake up every day between 3:30 and 4:30. How about you? Only 4% of the people wake up between 3 and 4, 20% between 4 and 5, 37 between 5 and 6. And I don't know if these sleepyheads are 6 a.m. or later. Mark, Lori, chime in.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the 80-20 rule is apparent right there, right? Like,
thank you.
If you listen to anybody who speaks about performance, they always come back to the basic principle of if you want something extraordinary, you have to do something extraordinary. If you want something different, you have to do something different. So to me, if on the poll alone, 80% of the people are waking up after 5 o'clock, I got to get up before 5 o'clock. Like, it's pretty simple. You know what I mean? Like, if I want to get myself into the top 20%, that's something that I have to do that's different. So, building a routine around how to do that, I think is really important. But just those numbers alone say, like, don't talk about wanting to be different and then do what everybody else is doing. That's your actions have to equate to what you want to do.
Miss Lori?
So I'm not really in agreement with all that. I think you got to put in the work. When you put in the work, when your optimal time is what's important. I am not a morning person, have never been a morning person. My father used to put me in the tub to wake me up, okay, literally, and turn on the water. I function better in the later part of the day. So I get up at 6. I got to get Patrick up, right? Whatever, do all that stuff. My time is at night. Mike gets up at 5, 4:30, whatever. He's in bed by 8:30. Patrick goes to bed. I get back on the computer, and that's my 2 or 3 hours of quiet time to work. That's when I function best. So I'm not necessarily stuck on what part of the day you do it. Look, most people are not working from 9 to 12 at night, right? So whether you're doing it 3 to 5, 4 to 6, or 9 to 12, whatever works for you, but you got to put in the time.
Agree 1,000% that whatever works for you, make it work for you. For me personally, I'm shocked by that time of the day. I got nothing left.
Yeah.
I got no gap. And part of that is because I'm up earlier, I'm working out early. So I'm crushing a large part of my energy tank prior to noon, right? Because morning routine, the huddle, get into work and get into the coaching calls and everything else. By the time the afternoon is coming, I'm already starting to dwindle. I don't want to think about having to put together 2 hours of work between 8:30 and 10:30 because, again, my schedule is different. So I agree with you, Lori, that you got to figure out what works for you. I find it harder to try to put in work at the end of the day because of the way my body feels.
Well, even with the workout, I'm not a morning workout person.
Yeah.
That's Jake.
Right.
We meet at 5:30. So
right.
I got my second win. I'm working out.
It's a good thing because you wouldn't get the mornings because I get the mornings with Jake.
I know.
But so it's very interesting. And I think the point here is as long as you do it consistently, and it works here. I think where people go wrong is they're all over the map. They have no consistency. For me, I have trained my body to wake up, do the things I want to do to get them out of the way. So I'm really, really good till 3 o'clock. And then at 3 o'clock, I'm done. I'm different. So I just love the topic when you ask people, because really whatever your process is, you got to do it every day. That's where I came up with TGIS. The grind includes Saturday and Sunday, man. Whatever your routine is, I get up, I do that 2 hours of work early on Saturday and Sunday. It makes me feel connected. So, it is what it is, Lori.
You talk, Derek Jeter, who I love, big Yankee fan. To me, there's three things about discipline. One, awareness, right? You got to be aware of what you're going after, right? And how you're going to get there. Action, you got to take action. And then persistence, consistency, right? You got to keep at it. So I think those are the three most important things that he kind of I pulled out of his little video.
Yeah, you got to discipline is doing it again.
And like Mike Tyson says, doing it when you don't feel like doing it, man,
right.
And doing it like you love it. But right. I'm going to play motivational music, and then we're getting into TED Talk Boca, Mark Nudelberg with a home run. Give me Joe Cocker.
Seems I've got to have changed. Every night I had strangers street, them present by the way, kind of thing. Left here on my own, the story seems I've got to leave before I start to scream. But someone locked the door and took the key. Feeling alright. I'm not feeling as good myself, I know. I know that you're feeling alright. I'm not feeling just myself, baby.
All right, so for those of you who were able to see it, Joe Cocker was wearing a Goldfarb. So
he was wearing a killer blazer. Just as a reminder, before we head on with the rest of the show, we're a couple weeks away from the live in-person huddle, which we have not done an in-person huddle before. So Shay has continued to share the link for the in-person huddle. Make sure you use promo code HUDDLE when you sign up. We're looking forward to seeing everybody there and having a kick-ass morning. But,
I think it would be impossible to not get better by being there in person.
1,000%.
So I want to set the stage, no pun intended, for what a TED Talk is. Anybody can get nominated to do a TED Talk. There is no restrictions. There's a tight committee that reviews it. It is about ideas that are worth spreading. So what you say, how you present it, it's a very tight format. It's unbelievable, the practice and the tension that goes into actually doing it. So Mark, just unpack it for us.
Well, so that was the really unique thing about it was, number one, shout out to Cindy. Thank you for the opportunity, right? Just having the opportunity to be able to do it. I'm very thankful for that, and the people who were part of the committee that wanted me to be a part of it. The second thing is just because you're a speaker, just because you've done it before, just because you may do it every week, that doesn't make it a good TED Talk, right? And understanding the format of what TED is looking for, and then being able to adjust your style, adjust your content, and adjust your delivery to make it fit, that was the thing that made me the most nervous. I wasn't nervous about getting in front of people or delivering a message. I was nervous about doing it the way it was supposed to be done. So that points to the preparation And shout out to Gabby and Cindy, because number one, Gabby allowed me to practice in front of her way too many times, way more than she would have.
He could have done the speech. If you fell down, she would jump up
just as well as I did. And then to Cindy, because so I had written it, I had practiced it, and I had it down. And then I went over it with Cindy on Thursday. And Cindy was like, look, this is really good, but I'm just telling you, this isn't really the TED format. Like, here's the TED format. Here's a TED coach that can help you. And I had to then on Thursday before Saturday say, I'll listen, I'll take the coaching, and I will adjust no matter how uncomfortable that made me feel, because I was in a panic after it. Because as soon as I reworked it, I tried to then deliver it again, and I stalled and didn't know it. And I was like, oh my God, this is going to be horrible. I got through it. I kept practicing. I kept putting in the preparation, had my notes, had my outline, had my script, and I did it over and over and over. And regardless of what the outcome is, my goal was to deliver a TED Talk that was impactful, understandable, and actionable. Those were things I could control. Could I deliver something that had impact? Could I deliver something that was understood or could be understood? And could I deliver something that had actionable steps for people to be able to take? So when I felt like I did that, the rest of it is gravy, right? The feedback from everybody else and the feeling I got from everybody after, I knew that I did the thing I wanted to do, which made me feel great as soon as it was over.
So I want to frame this, Lori, as an aspiring TED talker, because we are nominating you for next year. What questions do you have? What thoughts do you have?
I mean, I was so sad that I couldn't go. We had an event that night at 6:00, so I wouldn't have had time to get back. But I guess I'm curious about the difference between what you normally do versus, as Cindy said, this is not the TED Talk style. Like, I'm curious what the difference is.
So normally when I present information to people, it's really more about the teaching and less about the story, right? Keynote speeches are different. They're story, they're motivational, they're impactful. That is less teaching, more story and motivation, right? And then when I do presentations for teams, like when I was in Atlanta on Wednesday, that was the opposite of a TED Talk. It was more like a teaching session. We were going through philosophy. We were going through tactic. We're showing examples. And so this is a true blend of both of those things. They want you to be able to teach the idea that's worth spreading, and they want you to use stories to help reinforce and back up what you're teaching. So if you're too heavy on storytelling in the front, right, doesn't really land. If you're too heavy on teaching in the front, doesn't land. So you have to create this structure that grabs the audience, brings them in, gets them interested in the idea that you're talking about sharing, and then put together the lesson plan that weaves in the stories with the lesson plan in order to drive it home and then close it. And do that in under 15 minutes, essentially.
I was going to say, so the real key is when you take somebody who's used to freewheeling, and a lot of times in my presentation, right, I feel like somebody, like the audience grabs something and I go with it.
Right.
Stay there. This you can't. They either get it or they don't. And you got to keep plowing through it. So people could be sitting there, and there were a couple hundred people there. They could be staring at you going, what the fuck are you talking about? Or they could really be bought in. Either way, you got to stay on point, on tempo, because it's timed. And here's why. All of the video, everything was videoed, and then it gets uploaded to TED Global. Then there's another group of judges that view it to say, okay, we're going to stamp this and allow you to market it as a TED Talk. Mine got marketed as a TED Talk, which for nothing other than credibility, like most people, like even me, like I didn't even know what a TED thing was. I was like, who is Ted? Who's Ted, man? I'm like, but what it did was it added a lot of credibility that I could take my content and put it in this format. So all of that said, it's all about what you have to say.
Right.
clearly. And there were 6 other speakers who, you feel for people that are up there. You really want them to do well. They had their friends and family there. But the topic matters. And what Mark, you spoke about was so spot on that there isn't one person in the audience that couldn't relate to it. Lori, this is where I think you're going to excel, because you talk about your C's. That is a TED Talk. That is something that could be molded into a TED Talk. But Mark, go down the road of.
I want to hear about failure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and what really made me want to do it about failure was the conversation that we had about Giannis and how people get so lit up because of the word failure. So I started the entire TED Talk with the question, what if failure had no negative connotation associated with it? Right? How would that change your thinking? How would that change what you do in your life? Because to me, when you look at all of successful people, everybody looks at them as successful. But if you talk to them individually, they could go time and time again of failure, and they're not afraid to talk about that. And so for me, I've always pointed towards the process that I developed while I was in football of how to deal with failure. Because for what, like it or not, when you are in sports, winning is the goal. And if you don't win, you failed to reach the goal. And so every time we lost, it was a failure. And you felt that, or you should feel that. And so I pointed towards that, failure being the thing that develops the 3 most important characteristics, which are courage, confidence, and resilience. And so I broke.
You have 2 C's at least.
Yeah, there you go. And so I broke the failing process into 4 steps, which are simple and basic, but it's the 24-hour rule to feel it. It's the next step is to own it and take responsibility for it, regardless of whose fault it is. The third one is to correct it, go back and look at what happened and build a strategy to avoid making the same mistake or whatever. And then the 4th one is to try again. But I tied in each of those steps to my journey from having a lot of success very young in my football career to getting fired and being knocked down, and it taking me a while to make the real correction, which was getting out of football. I was playing the right game in the wrong arena. It took me a long time to recognize that was the real problem, was the industry I was in, not what I was doing or how I was doing it. And so taking people through the lesson and reinforcing it with the stories that I had, and then driving it home with ultimately telling them that if they put this process in place, they can use failure to create positive impact.
I'm looking for some overtime, Shay.
And we'll go to overtime.
So I want to make a couple of comments about quality of speaking. Anybody can speak. We all speak. People get intimidated by an audience, but we all speak 1-to-1, 1 to a few, 1 to many. Your ability to stand on the stage and be absolutely silent is a gift, because most people think they need to over talk it. Now, me, I'm watching you and I'm watching the audience, and here's where people where it resonated. And this is where, Lori, your stories would come in. And I want people to think about the narrative that they're creating out there. You talked about starting over.
Yep.
Starting over sucks. Yep. Your ego talks to you in a way like you're a loser. You can't look at you, man. You got to start at ground zero again. Guess what? The best of the best know how to start over. Starting over is brutal, but when you do it, you build that confidence muscle that there's no other way to build that muscle than to start over. So your ego was, I think I forgot what movie. Your ego could have been Top Gun. Your ego's writing checks that you couldn't cancel.
That is Top Gun.
I'm going to be the next. I am. You are nothing. Yeah. And you went to 0 and then building it back up. That's where resilience comes from. Then you say to yourself, I did this, and every single person in the audience was going like, yeah, I can remember a time when I had to start over. And it's knee buckling. It's Lori.
That's the most validating point of the talk is when you see people in their seats going, nodding their head, and you know that they're going along that journey with you. But like getting to a point where I'm comfortable on stage being silent, like starting, first of all, the person who spoke before me spoke about suicide.
Oh.
So you want to talk about sucking the air out of the room? And like, I love Cindy. Thank God Cindy addressed it and changed the perspective a little bit before I got on stage, because the room was somber at the end of that talk. And so I was in my head like, how long am I going to wait here before I get started? And, you know, again, thank you to Gabby for working with me time and time again. Slower. Like, for those of you that have seen the movie Whiplash, right? That's about a guy who finds a young prodigy drummer. Again. Gabby and I working together, she's slower. And so working on that cadence and knowing when to pause. You said it, Dad. Anybody can speak. Understanding how to deliver the message to create the impact that you want, to stress the certain areas of what you're talking about, that takes work.
Let me jump in for a quick second, because Lori will relate to this. Lori actually gave me an opportunity to speak to an audience, not just a company. Jerry, I spoke to Bank United. It was all one company. Lori gave me an opportunity around some great speakers when she was at Leadership Broward. And I was taken way off my game, because the guy that went before me had like a diabetic shock. And he was like talking about some crazy shit. And he was and people were looking around, and he went way over time, and it was very scripted. So like, here I got up there, I'm nervous, I'm sweating. And when I watched the film, I was pacing back and forth. I was watching myself, you know, I was fast, and it was like, you know, so it takes a lot of practice to be good at anything, but especially speaking. So thank you for that experience, Lori, because, you know, I realized I didn't want to be that. So, you know, what a great way to start, Mark. I think everybody.
Do we get to see some of it?
So I think it comes out in a month. So I think they create like the YouTube link a month from now to where everybody can see it. And I'm not actually sure how long it takes to get a decision from TED on whether or not they're going to bless it to go on to the main platform and promote it themselves. But to me, all of that is out of my control. Doesn't matter. That wasn't the goal. The goal was to deliver something that was, you know, impactful, understood, and actionable. And thank you to everybody that was there that has reached out to me through social, through text, whatever it is, that said, Mark, you did a great job. You crushed it. It was unbelievable. So thank you to everybody for that. I'm super proud of what was done, and I can't wait to be able to share.
The last thing before we go, Lori, there's no carryover, but you know, it's a short week. You want to do Tuesday?
Just getting right in.
What would my week be if I didn't do Tuesday?
We'll see you. I actually have a good topic for tomorrow, so stay tuned. Lori will be back. Thank you for joining us. Way to kick off the week. Now it's time to get down.
Congrats, Mark.
Thank you.
Please don't worry about me. I'm about to let my heart speak. My friends keep telling me to leave this. So let's get down to business.